Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is leveling up. When we go through an evolution, a personal evolution, when we're moving toward our vision and expression of our more essential selves, it's often required that we level up. And what does that mean? That's what we're going to have as our conversation this morning. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop. And allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, and good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you here with us this morning, and welcome to everyone else who's joining us as well. Today, we are speaking about leveling up. And hopefully we go through these phases in life where we're kind of upping our game. We're going to the next level, and we're following our dreams and our vision for what's possible. And when we do so, there's a lot of letting go that happens. There's a lot of releasing of old patterns, old ways of being, sometimes of people that have been with us through our lives, old ways of showing up in the world to emerge into a new expression. So that's what we're looking at today. For example, I remember when I took on my vision for myself and this vision of the eco park, which is still very much in my heart, although not showing up yet in the material world, attention being elsewhere. But when I took that on, I had a revelation that the people that were in my life were not people that could also hold that vision. That in order to even begin to make that a reality, or to make my coaching program, for example, a reality, it was essential that I up level, that I cultivate new relationships, not necessarily in favor of the old, although sometimes we get to let go of relationships where people are not only not supportive of us, but people who are trying to hold us bound to the limitations that we had previously. But it is often necessary to cultivate new relationships with people that you can have those kinds of expansive conversations with, people that can match you and support you in your dreams and visions. It's the story of the crabs in the bucket, that as other crabs are trying to climb out of the bucket, the crabs that are in the bucket try to pull the climbing crab back into the bucket. And I think that this happens a lot with interpersonal dynamics in our lives as well. You know, that as we change, that change threatens or can threaten people in our lives. And if indeed that's the case, those are not the people that we want to be having in our lives. We want people in our lives that support us in the evolution of our dreams and of ourselves. That we want to be able to step into a greater expression and play with people on a field that allows for those potentials, for the expression of those potentials. So I don't know what's happening to my voice. Excuse me. So in addition to up-leveling our social support network, which is really an essential thing, it's an essential thing. We get to, most importantly, up-level our sense of ourselves and our sense of who we are and the standards, I guess, that we set for ourselves, like stepping into a new way of being. So this is a really interesting thing that I'm working with a client through as they are evolving in their expression, as they are becoming more and more awake and more present to their own potentials. What they're experiencing is a battle between themselves and themselves, a battle between the old self and the new self, and or the emergent self. And what I mean by a battle is that there's this assertion of the old self that it is kind of trying to keep hold. And as we go through these evolutions, we're often confronted, fast and furious in many cases, by our limitations or by our old fears, by our triggers, by all of our upsets. It often comes as we're purging, as we're growing beyond these patterns in our lives. Oftentimes the patterns reassert themselves with a fury. And it's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic to witness. It's interesting to see how these familiar ways of being really don't want to let go, and don't necessarily give way to new ways of being with ease, because they're so deeply entrenched, and I think partly because they're so deeply tied to survival. And so we have these mechanisms that we've cultivated over years relative to survival. And when that survival is threatened, it fights back. You know, those parts that have worked so hard through our lives to take care of ourselves, but have become obsolete in their way, they really do tend, as we're evolving beyond them, they tend to want to reassert themselves. And so the question is, how do we contend with that situation? And it was so interesting in working with this person yesterday. They had been experiencing all these triggers showing up and all this upset that came with it. And we talk a lot about the meta position, standing back, being witness. And they were enmeshed. They were just completely consumed and absorbed by the circumstance. And in the work that we were doing, they were able to step back into the witness position, and they said, wow, this is amazing, because I've been experiencing this sort of as victim of it. And what I recognize is that rather than being this painful, difficult moment, this could actually be a really exciting a passage. This could actually be a really exciting adventure and part of my life, period of my life, going through these transitions. So it's interesting because we often experience change as disruptive, and we suffer often in the process. And here we actually have the choice to embrace these changes with excitement. It's just a simple shift of mind, as is so much of our experience, just a simple shift of perspective. But to go from problem to opportunity, to move into a space of what's the opportunity here, and to be able to embrace that opportunity with excitement and enthusiasm, even though it's unknown, and maybe especially because it's unknown. So in this leveling up, there may be a process of letting go. It's likely that there will be a process of letting go where all the fears arise. If we can imagine holding on to a rope and somebody's offering another rope or offering a hand, in order to be able to grab that new hand, to take hold of that hand that's being offered, we need to let go of the rope. And there's that fear, that transitional fear of moving from this familiar state into this unknown. And there's a moment where, we're holding on only by one hand, and then we're holding the hand that's being offered to us, and then to make the transition from that rope to the new hand, it's like, do I know that that new hand is going to support me? And so all the fears of letting go of the familiar arise in the course of leveling up. And this is a natural, although challenging, evolution. And it's important that we cultivate ourselves in a way that we can better embrace these opportunities, that we can better more readily step into these changes as we're called into our greater expression. Because the rewards of that expression are boundless. The rewards of that expression and the opportunity of it are beyond what we can imagine from our current state. And not the least of those rewards is the reward in expression itself, in our expanded authenticity, in our expanded connection to our essential being, in developing our capacities and capabilities, that that allow for greater fulfillment and greater expression. So this idea of leveling up means, it does mean of necessity stepping out of that comfort zone. And the question is, what is that comfort zone providing? You know, it's not that change is disruptive, and we can find new levels of vitality and comfort in that. I guess maybe we get to be looking at redefining comfort. Like, what is it? What is that? And is it something that is stifling our lives or enriching our lives? And it can be either. It can be either. I mean, there are times to be able to savor, to be able to relish and enjoy is an essential part of life and the fulfillment of life. And growing, exploring, expanding occurs when we're challenged. So this is an interesting thing. I recall reading about plants that when they had no environmental challenges, they were weak. They weren't resilient. They weren't able to respond to disruptions in the environment. They became fragile. And we also know that if you challenge a plant or a person, for that matter, if they're in a situation that is too disruptive or too challenging, then that can also destroy a person. So we're talking about this kind of tightrope that we walk, where in order to be alive and vital, we need a certain degree of challenge. And in order to thrive, we need a certain degree of comfort, or an opportunity maybe to recover from the challenge, so that the challenge isn't persistent all the time and constant, because that we know that creates all kinds of elevated cortisol levels and all kinds of not so positive physiological impacts. So finding a way to achieve that balance. And balance isn't static. Balance is constant readjustment. And that's where our resilience comes from, where we adapt and we shift and we change. And as part of that process, we're developing new neural networks that are coping or addressing those shifts and changes, that are responding to those changes. And so this leveling up thing is a big deal, and it accompanies our desire for growth, and particularly when we're when we're intending in the direction of our dreams and visions, it means going beyond our own limiting beliefs. And as we do that, it means letting go of aspects of ourselves and aspects of our familiar lives, um, and moving into a next dimension of expression, which can show up in our clothing, even like the way we wear our hair, or don't in my case. But oftentimes when we're looking for a change, what do? We change our wardrobe, we change our appearance. We change the way we wear our hair, or we change, or we might do something as simple as get a manicure, for example, for women and men too, I guess. But we do these things to support us in change. And recognizing when these moments of change are calling us into new spaces is a really powerful thing. It's a powerful thing to look at. Well, okay, I'm making this change, and I'm not talking about fakery. I'm talking about some creating these new these changes as a reflection of what we are becoming, kind of paving the way for our evolution, paving the way, like, for instance, putting yourself in positions where you have that are more ripe with opportunity. It's like you don't want to go trying to pick apples in a bramble bush. You don't want to, um, you want to find an apple orchard, right? And that's where you're going to have an opportunity to find apples. It reminds me of the story of someone who lost their wallet, and somebody comes across them rooting around under a street light and says to them, "Hey, what are you doing?" And the person says, "I'm looking for my wallet." And the person that stumbled upon them says, "Well, where did you last have it?" Or, where did you last remember having your wallet? And they say, "Well, it was, over yonder in this dark house." And the person that stumbled upon them says, "Well, what are you doing looking for your wallet under the lamp?" And the person says, "Well, the light is better here." But there's no wallet going to be found there, right? So what we want to do is look in the right places, or places that support our intention and our growth, and place ourselves where there's a greater opportunity, or a greater likelihood for opportunity that supports our intention. And it's a rite of passage, really, that we can grant ourselves to move into these new spaces. And we do have the capability at any time to be opening ourselves to new worlds. And it often means stepping at least to the very edge of our comfort zone, if not just over that edge, to step into our greatness. And one of the things about doing that is that so many people, in my experience, have a conversation about that being in some way selfish, to be stepping into our greater expression. And I kind of take the perspective that it's selfish not to, because each of us came here with a gift for the world. And it's our opportunity to be giving that gift to the world. So our gifts are not our own to keep, they're ours to give. And stepping into our greatness, stepping into our highest expression is our service. So I invite you to honor your dreams, to put yourself in situations that support them, to find exhilaration in the letting go, and to recognize it as an opportunity rather than a loss, even though we get to mourn it, because there is a space of loss. There is a space of letting go of who we've been, and we can have gratitude for that in the process of releasing to move on to the next space of expression. So that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like, follow, and share Enlightened World Network and me. The links are in the description. And as always, it's a tremendous privilege and pleasure to spend this time together musing about what it is to be human. So until next time, so much love.